So thank you for joining us on our Empowering Voices series. Nora told me amazing things about you. Also watched your TED Talk, and I'm famous to basically stalk everyone online to get as much information as I can. So I did my research. I was really stuck, and I was really impressed by the TED Talk, by your honesty, and by the way, and also by the way you communicate with the people around you, and your story, which is a powerful one. So of course, when in this interview, we can totally talk about everything that matters to you, but I want to start with what is one aspect that matters to you the most, and you would like people to focus on that.
Say it one more time.
What aspect of your journey and about all the topics that you mentioned in your TED Talk and everything that we do at Until, for example, regarding the HIV stigma, the AIDS stigma, or the stigma around sex work and health and sex health and reproduction services, what is one aspect that matters to you the most and you would like for people to get to become aware of it?
I had to do a lot of advocacy and a lot of work to get to where I am today. So it wasn't easy for me. It just took trust in myself and my willingness to be up for the challenge to walk through being stigmatized and discriminated against because of my story. It's like I took a lot of blows behind just being stigmatized because just not only being a Black woman, but being a Black woman living with HIV, a history of incarceration, a history of sex work, trying to have a child, trying to navigate in a society that think I'm not good enough to be a mother due to my status and my experience. It was a lot of blows I had to take, but what I want people to know that I'm resilient. I don't give up. I keep fighting for what I believe in. And yeah.
It's your TED Talk. Sorry?
I said, I hope that answered your question.
Yes, absolutely. And your TED Talk was really inspiring, especially when it comes to talking about what people don't want to talk about. So you talk about the stigma of being HIV positive. You talk about the stigma about having being formally incarcerated and how society perceives you and how society portrays people who are HIV positive. So one question that I was really curious about is what's your opinion on harm reduction services? And yeah, that's this one.
My opinion on harm reduction services, I think, is important. Like, I don't really say this a lot, but back in the day when I was in my heroin addiction, I used to hang out with women who used to shoot heroin. I never shot heroin. I was always snorting heroin, but I always feared that they may overdose. So I would sneak them in my room because my mother always stayed in her room. So I would sneak them in my room so they could have a safe space to shoot up. So in case they OD'd or whatever, I would have try to revive them and get them help right away. So, people was telling me I was doing harm reduction back then and didn't even know what it means. So I think having harm reduction tools and tactics and information and resources is so important because it not only prevents the person from contracting HIV, but we also do know another harm reduction, another way a person can contract HIV is through IV injections. So in order to have a safe space for them to have safe needles, a safe place to utilize the needles and do what they need to do in a safe setting, I think that is important. And also knowing their risk for HIV and hepatitis C as well and have that access.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's so sad nowadays to see that harm reduction services are being blamed or shut down and they're not receiving the funding that they're supposed to have. You talked about being young in New Orleans because I know that you grew up in New Orleans, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, I grew up in New Orleans, yeah.
And then you moved to LA later on.
Yeah.
What is something that you think, especially adults or people in general, are not getting when it comes to marginalized youth or young people? What is something that the adults should consider now?
Hey, I couldn't hear what you said, Sharon. Say that one more time. All I heard was young folks.
Yeah, about young folks, and I read that your diagnosis came pretty early, and you talked a lot about growing up in New Orleans.
So for me, I was diagnosed with HIV at 15. And growing up in New Orleans, it wasn't HIV had a bad name, you know what I'm saying? And it was a lot of stigma due to around HIV. And it wasn't a safe space to share a diagnosis. So for me, I had to cover up my diagnosis by using drugs. So that's how my drug addiction came about. And I started using heroin and cocaine and crack cocaine and stuff like that to kind of cover up my status. So in case I died, people would think I died of a drug overdose. So it really wasn't conversations about safe sex practices or anything in the household. It was go to school, go to church. It was that, you know, sexual health was never taught. It was always stay in a child's place and, you know, things like that. So I didn't know how to protect myself.
No, absolutely. One thing that was really impressed by is that you felt the need to hide your diagnosis, especially to your mom, because quoting you on the TED Talk, you said she would have told the whole church. So I had to hide it. It was to protect yourself. It was to protect myself and my family. What does this really made me reflect on what does a safe space now look to you, and what do you think matters when building safe spaces for youth and for people who use drugs and for people who are HIV positive? What does a safe space in your mind? What should a safe space look like now?
A safe space look like a space that's peer organized with no judgment and people that have that caring and understanding. You know what I'm saying? That been there, done that, and that can relate and offer, you know, suggestions on how to recover, how to overcome, or how to get the support. And sometimes you can hold that person's hand and help them walk through that process or that experience. They have people who already been there through that experience. To me, that's safe spaces. Having peer operated spaces with people that get it and had an experience, not just the degree, but the lived experience.
Absolutely. This is why this is like, on a side note, I recently learned in Italy when I was volunteering in a community for people who use drugs and they're recovering. Basically, we have this new rule where people can work, like are legitimate, they can work there without a degree based on the experience they have and based of the time they've spent in the community helping others. They receive basically an authorization to help to become formally helpers and volunteers and guidance and counselors in the community they want to help based on their experience. And I think it's a really important thing, and it's really great. On the note of sexual and reproductive health, what do you think now? I know that America is going through a lot, and I know that by my colleagues that until that Roe v. Wade was overturned, now they're talking about banning Plan B and birth control and making birth control even more difficult to access. What's your opinion on the situation that America is going through now with the whole debate on sexual and reproductive health?
The thing for me is I live in a state that's more independent and free with access to still those contraceptives, but my family being in Louisiana and New Orleans, they don't, you know. And if I feel that like this case, this is the recent case of a lady in Louisiana. She's pregnant right now, and the Roe versus Wade affected her because she lived in a state that that agreed with the overturn of Roe versus Wade, and now she's pregnant with this baby that has no brain. So by her being under the laws of Roe versus Wade, this lady has to take this baby into full term. So not only does that impact her life, that affects her mental health, her mental stability. So this law caused more physical, not only physical, but mental harm to women who may not have access. Like some of us are privileged in some states we live in, like myself. So I have a little privilege, but my family don't. You know, my nieces don't have the privilege or the luxury to be able to have access to abortions or contraceptives.
Absolutely. And we always have stressed this at Until, that abortion is part of all the services that health and reproductive health center should offer. And the fact that it's a big part of our health as women, or as people who identify with the whole with as women now. And it's a very scary place now in America to be, and I think also our sisters across the world, especially here in Italy, we really empathize with you, and we really care about giving you my whole support. I read on your website that during the pandemic and during Corona times, basically the poverty line got even, like people living under the poverty line were even more and more, and food insecurity became even worse, and housing insecurity, especially for young people who are often, it's often hard to say when a young person is experiencing housing insecurity, because, they always say, I have a friend to stay, or I have a place to stay, or I have a friend who can host me. But not having a place on your own, and not having, as we said, a safe space, is something that really affects your mental, reproductive, physical, and your future. So every aspect of your health and your future.
And it also leaves people at risk for HIV, because some people have sex for a place to stay and have to be a sex slave or do sexual acts just for a place to stay, food to eat, and things like that. So that leaves them at risk for HIV as well.
Absolutely. You also mentioned in your TED Talk that young people are often more fragile and vulnerable when it comes to trafficking, so that young women are exposed, especially women living under the poverty line, are more exposed to human traffickers than, of course, privileged people and people who are wealthier. Yes, considering the effects of the pandemic that it had on people, which part of your story do you think it's the most powerful, and you would like for people to really pay attention to? Maybe it's when you were very young and the importance of a safe space, or now the importance of working for your community and creating a powerful advocacy?
So for me, I started sex trafficking really young, from 11 to 23 years old. So for me, I didn't really see no one that looked like me through my nonprofit to be able to offer training and employment spaces to women and girls who may not think they're employable due to their criminal record or not having enough education or training. I want to be able to have that space for them, so they can know that you don't just have to sell your body. That's not the only option. That experience can make you an expert. Yes, you can utilize that as a tool, but that's not the end all be all for your life. There's other resources, other opportunities, and other things that you can have access to. And that's what I'm trying to build and create for young women and girls like myself. As a person that was young, sex trafficking from childhood into adulthood, and overcame a lot of barriers. And I know out there in those streets what sex trafficking did to me, and the experiences I had, the traumas and the horrors that I had to experience. So my goal is to create these safe spaces so women and girls won't have to continue to go through these unsafe experiences and doing demoralizing things to themselves just to make $1.
Absolutely. Do you ever feel in the community that you're working with a certain kind of resistance, or has it ever happened to, since your start in advocacy and working for your community, to have encountered maybe people that you, the way you're friends, or where you're like lifelong friends, and now being this kind of, being on the other side, you want to like help and build a community, but you see a kind of stigma related to the help that you want to give, or to the community that you want to help? Because something that we often talk.
I don't worry about stigma, because I spent 10 years thinking about what people thought about me, and I also stigmatized myself, and I did a lot of demoralizing things to myself because I didn't love myself. So stigma to me is like, I don't even worry. I don't even, to me, stigma don't faze me, but I know what stigma can do to others because based on what it did to me. So I try to educate in a way so where people can get it. And if that costs telling my story and exposing myself and exposing my experience and putting a face to it, face to the experience, and letting them know, hey, this was the past, but this is our future. And we do recover and we do overcome some things. So don't count us out.
Absolutely. What are your thoughts on HIV criminalization and the whole debate?
My thoughts on HIV criminalization, I think those laws are very outdated. I think we should be at a place where we should be able to educate legislators on HIV, when they come to thinking these laws are sufficient, because they're not. How can you criminalize somebody just because they have HIV? And then on top of that, you're in a relationship and you're with this partner, they know your status, but when they get upset, they can call the police and tell the police, hey, this person got HIV, and the laws and the information is so outdated, they just take this person's word and not notice that it was two people. The person already knew the status, and also HIV, if you're on your medication and in care, it's hard to transmit HIV. So I think it's all about a lack of education, and we need to do more educating in our legislature around HIV and HIV criminalization and how much harm it does to the person without that knowledge, with lack of knowledge, how these laws does harm to people and families. Because once you get criminalized for HIV, you have to register as a sex offender.
Yeah, Nora told me that.
So you can't be around your kids, your family. You can't go to a park. It's certain barriers that you face. And that's not right. How am I a sex offender? Because I'm a person living with HIV. You don't think I'm supposed to have sex? You don't think it's life after a diagnosis? You don't think I'm supposed to be sexually happy? You don't think I'm supposed to thrive and have a mate and do these things? And see, society always try to count us out when we're living with HIV or have these criminal backgrounds and these certain type of paths. Society want to kick us out and judge us and have all these laws and these rules in place. But that's so unfair and that's unjust.
Absolutely. One thing that we last talked about in our last interview on Empowering Voices was the link between HIV criminalization and sex work, and all the battles that sex work, especially in California, is going through because of the HIV criminalization and all the, as you said, and all the outdated laws.
HIV criminalization here in 2017. So HIV criminalization laws has been repealed in the state of California since 2017. So, and then around sex work is legal now in California. So sex work is illegal. Criminalization around sex work, you know, they used to give women solicitation charges if they get caught with 4 or more condoms. Now that's no longer a thing anymore. So women, you know, can have safe sex, healthy sex, you know, and you know, and not only just women, you know, trans women face a lot of barriers too when it comes down to employment. So they have, the only option is sex work, be due to discrimination through their gender identity and who they identify as, you know. So I feel like just revolutionizing that that law to make it legal, but also allowing us to provide the information and tools to these women. And also, I think we need to do more outreach to these on these strips and these sex spaces, and you know, and order more harm reduction strategies and mobilizing these women as well. Like, we don't judge you for what you do, but here's information and resources in case you want to get out. Here's safe sex tools that you can use in your practice, and here's resources, you know, and just letting people know we here, because you can't tell me having sex work is fun. You know, it comes to a time where it gets overwhelming. You know, it gets old, you know, and you want something different, but you lack resources or information on where to get that different at, you know, that different experience.
How do you feel now in California people are perceiving in 2022 sex work and all the struggles that are related to it?
I feel good about that, but I feel like we still need to do more. Like I said, we need to still focus on mobilization. That's why I'm glad that California is focusing more on EHE, and EHE is ending the HIV epidemic. And with that is to prevent, respond, and diagnose. So that's the 4 pillars. So with that, with using those 4 pillars, we not only can mobilize, we can treat people who are diagnosed with HIV by offering them testing in underserved communities, and communities where people not only go, but we can bring mobile units into those areas to mobilize those individuals. And have peers that have experience, and have people on the front line that are living with HIV and that are thriving with HIV to, you know, to be out there sharing their story, and also giving people hope if they are diagnosed, or give them hope to prevent them from contracting HIV too. Give them hope by giving them tools and resources.
Yes. Absolutely. Resources are so important, and we often talk about them in the work that we do at Until, especially access to cure, access to treatment, how to access a safe space, and all the resources that a community has. So my final and signature question, because I often ask this, and I think it's one of the most important parts of the interview, what is one thing that you will tell your younger self? You choose the age. I'm 23. So I'm the age you were. You said you moved to, I think you moved to LA around that age. And
I moved to LA when I was 21.
Oh, okay. So 2 years before 23.
So I would tell my young self, you're safe now. It's okay. You're safe. You know, you're safe. You're loved. You're cared for. You are worth living. You know, your life is worth living. You are beautiful. You're amazing. You know, you're a survivor. You're a warrior. You're powerful. You know, and you are safe now. So welcome home.
Absolutely. I absolutely love doing interviews, because I get to hear the stories, all the powerful stories of you and from people across the world. I'm in south of Italy right now, and you're in LA, and somehow we connected. We made this interview happen, and we share your very powerful story. So thank you so much for your words, for sharing your story and your experience with us. And absolutely, as Until, I'm looking forward to working with you in the future, and to maybe meeting you one day. It will be incredible for me to come to LA. So
and I could come to Italy one of these days.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can write me anytime.
Pizza, some spaghettis and meatballs out there.
Yeah, we have the best ones.
Yep. So I
Absolutely.
can't wait.
So thank you so much. It was a wonderful episode. And of course, I'll send you the link as after my colleagues have edited it, and we can totally stream it. So thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Talk to you soon.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.